Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alyssa Maps the Greyhawk city of Krakenheim. I think what we're on, episode 4, maybe 5, something like that. In the last episode, really laid down our outer walls. I mean, look at that, there's some lovely detail on that. I gotta be honest with you. I am. I am A-OK with this. Hopefully, you're kind of digging just the insane amount of detail that we are going to go for on this map. It is going to be so much fun. We'll get some ladders or steps going up the sides too of that particular gatehouse. So this is already shaping up to be something a little bit special. Let's talk about what comes next, because this is my typical city approach. Kind of decide the general canvas, if you will, that we're drawing on. And here you saw in the first episode or two, I was musing about the shape of the river, then I kind of moved the city completely to get rid of the bank on the other side, because I don't want to commit to how wide the river is at this juncture. I want to leave that fairly open, but I also think that it'd be wide. This is kind of getting close to the mouth of a river estuary. It's a major city. I don't want to commit to something like 200 feet across or 300 feet across, because it could be a lot more, right? So the first couple of episodes were sort of spent laying down our shape. Then we explored the actual sort of the shape of the city itself, right? And we looked at some inspiration from real life and real world archaeological digs and that type of thing. And I kind of netted out with this because it's really unusual. I think it's unusual to have the stockade like this going out into the water. I think it's unusual to have an arrangement of towers like this kind of overseeing the ways in and out. This would be estuary side, right? I love the concept of it quite a bit, and it's so unique. It will give Krakenheim a lot of originality to it. The other thing that I would now do is I would start to place districts. Where do I want to put major points of interest in the city? And that's what we're going to get locked down today, and that's what I'm going to talk through with you. So let's just I've got my black ink here, and let's kind of just throw in a new layer. We got a lot. You know what, let's grab all of these and maybe those two towers and the tower detail. Let's throw all of those into a folder, right? And we'll just call that walls. So that cleans things up. The new layer, we're going to call this just a sketch, because I might throw it away later. I'm probably going to throw it away later. I'm drawing, by the way, on a Cintiq 24-inch HD Touch. It's essentially a monitor that lays down flat. It's touch and gesture enabled. So it's basically a pad that I can draw on, right? But it also sits upright and it functions as a monitor as well. I'm using Photoshop, but everything I'm doing you could honestly do on just a Surface or any tablet that you can draw on using a free program like GIMP or whatever comes with the tablet. Same principle holds. Likewise, also pencil and paper and ink. Those are my origins right there, and I draw in that style. You can see these faint grey lines in the background. Just think of that as pencil, and we'll erase it later on. And I'm about to do something similar now, and that is I'm going to be marking off our districts. Now, a couple of things about this. First and foremost, let's talk about some concepts of warehouse districts, right? I have, to my mind, two potential main warehouse areas. Now, this is a Norse-inspired settlement, and I don't want to get sort of too medieval in its appearance. However, if we've got a lot of shipping kind of coming in and out of these areas, then odds on we would likely want to have some storage areas handy nearby, right? So let's just sort of say, for the sake of argument, in this type of area, right? Where they can then be kind of offloaded from the longboats and moved further into the city wherever they need to go. Additionally, up here, our main east-west road is going to come to this location. We're not going to have a bridge over the river. Again, I want the river to sort of be implied that it's quite wide. But, and I figured that they ferry things across the river. In and out, they use this water gate, so to speak. Now, if we do that, I kind of also feel that there would be some kind of warehouses up in this district too. And like again, I mean, I don't know if the goods sit here for a long period of time, but there's about 4,500 people that live here. I imagine there's quite a bit of traffic that comes in and out, and not everything is going to get immediately loaded on carts and shipped out. Maybe it sits there for a couple of days, maybe a little bit longer. Let's give them some warehouses where they can store this stuff. So we're going to have kind of two small warehouse districts. Now, the size and scale of this map is a lot more zoomed in, okay? I think those were about 60 feet in length, something like that. So if that's the case, then really imagine a 2x2 block. Maybe a 3x2 is going to be our warehouses, which means that this type of area here and this type of area up here, I'm talking about maybe 2, 4, 6 warehouses tops. Not my usual high density massive warehouses that we normally have, let's say in the Wantham map, where there's 20,000 people there. But we'll reserve those spaces for warehouses. Now, the one reason why I'm marking these off is it also means that we'll have roads coming in and out of these areas, right? Additionally, docks. Now, I don't want to go too dock heavy on this because longships can get dragged up onto the land. And Greyhawk Online stated an interest in maybe us going for that, right? Like really sort of having that as part of the theme. Let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. We can actually sort of do a little bit of inspiration here. It might be this one. Yeah, there we go. So if I zoom in on that, so you could see that, yeah, we've got 1 or 2 docks here, but, and up here too, but they're also dragging them up onto the shoreline quite a bit. And I love the concept of that because it's different again. It's going to really add to the flavour of what makes Krakenheim different than our other cities. Now, this particular map has been a huge part of our inspiration and will continue to be part of our inspiration, but I think there's too many docks. I want to use docks when we're actually going to be near that main east-west, west-east like roadway that then turns into that waterway, right? Because I fancy the idea if they're doing a lot of loading and unloading and the ships are probably rarely coming out of the water, you know, you're loading them up, you're moving them across the river, you unload them on the other side, get them on cart on the other side, continue on our way. Those are almost like ferries at this point. So I think having them almost permanently in the water like this would make sense. So what that means is I kind of figured that we'll have some docks up here. And maybe we'll have some docks, a few, down here, but nothing crazy, right? And we're going to have a lot of areas where they drag the ships out of the water, mainly down in this area, because I could see this being the main path in and out for, you know, raiding and other things that our little ice barbarians do. Let's just get rid of that. Right, there. So that's kind of my plan. Now, oh, I'm dying over here. Before I get sort of too deep into this, I do want to actually check on something. I want to check our scale. And I'm going to do it in an interesting way. Because length of longship. Now, there are, I think, a few different types of longships, right? I'm going to butcher the names here. But I think there's like a Gnar, and other stuff. Anyway, moving on before I reveal too much of my ignorance of Viking ships, but I'm seeing online that they have a usual length of 65 feet, typically 50 feet. I'm sure that they had some a little bit longer, And I know for a fact that they have some that were a little bit shorter. But if we're going to go with 60 feet, and I do see that in quite a few different sort of references here from Botanica.com, Wikipedia, so on and so forth. If we say 60 feet is going to be our average length, that now, and I'm going to draw some long ships on this map, that I think would dictate our docks, right? So, if we say that one of these buildings is about 60 feet in length, I think that's probably, by the way, generous. I think that would probably be a little bit too much. I see this as these are buildings where there's maybe a family of 6 in them. Most Viking buildings tend to be small, a fairly intricate design, but they're not 60 feet in length. I could see more like 20, 30 feet in length, maybe 40. Some of the designs I've seen have been sort of close to like 20 feet with maybe an L-shaped sort of structure to them, that type of thing, but they're not 60. So we're going to say if these are our kind of standard building sizes, then what I've just said there is that this is about, let's call it 30 feet. Between 20, between 40, that is 30 feet right there. So if we lock that in, then that means that a longship is 2 of those put together. So if we just quickly sketch that out, and again, we're going to draw them in super detail, but just for now, that means that one of our longships is going to be, something like this. In fact, in all truth, it should probably be more like this, right? And even then, that's going slightly beyond the 60 feet mark. But it would be something like that. That's a long ship right there. So, how does that... That's a kind of a tight fit, actually, right there on that gate, isn't it? I might broaden that up a little bit. We'll see. They're probably quite comfortable, like, scudding through there. But I might move that a little bit further away. This gap here, I do like. But let's use this as on measurement for docks, because now I can draw docks here that are a little bit longer than that. So with that said, let's kind of pencil something in. Let's do a secondary ink layer. And let's see what this kind of comes out looking like here. Oops, I've still got my select tool. Let's deselect that. Let's get my brush back. And my brush is on 8 pixels right now. That should be okay. No, that's too thin. That is too thin. Let's update this. Yeah, okay. We can always move this. So, and then that would probably mean that this is about the width of the house. So that's probably about 15 feet across. That's about 15 feet. That doesn't feel too bad as a width through a dock. So if we did something like this as our basic. Let's just get rid of that there. And we're going to see how to, oh, you know what we should do? Let's just get some little crates or something on the end here. Okay. Let's zoom out. Now we can actually see Krakenheim, I think, beginning to take a little bit of shape. Because now we have a good sense of scale, I think. So let's do 2 piers, maybe 2 or 3 piers down here, and 2 to 4 up the top. Let's go for something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark out where then our roads are going to start falling in this, and that'll be some nice progress. I think let's just leave a small gap. In fact, let's leave a reasonable gap because we can actually pull some ships up between them. But let's do something like this. And on this one, let's kind of do this type of thing. There we go. And here, I'm going to get rid of this. Beautiful. Now, I wouldn't normally, by the way, draw this level of detail at this juncture. But hey, while we're here, right? Let's have some fun with this. I'm also going to resist the temptation to draw cranes and things like that. I want this to feel a little bit more low-tech. I love the idea of these frost barbarians unloading this stuff by hand. I can see it, right? I can hear it. I think it's a nice picture in the mind's eye. Let's just kind of like cap them off. Something like that. Maybe we'll the pier end. Something like this. Okay, so for the most part, when they're coming in and out of the city in the southern Watergate, I feel like if they've got goods to offload like this and they really need the piers, then they're going to use them. Otherwise, they're going to just come up a little bit further in, maybe further down the bottom area here, and they are going to drag those ships up onto the water. So to simulate that, let's just sort of take this little bad boy, and we'll kind of do this just so we are marking off the area where they do this. And I think clearly only smaller ships are going to go there. A bigger one would go right here. But then here we'll have a little bit more of this going on. Also, I want to point out that I think that they would have some shipbuilding facilities here. Not like a dry dock and all the rest of it. But they are going to be capable, and I think a city of 4,500, they are going to build their own ships right here. Now, there's nothing that I've read in the law that says, yes, they have a shipbuilding facility, but I do think that they would, at least on a modest level, be able to do that. Building ships, ship repair, and so on. So I'm gonna think that we're gonna block off maybe this southern area. So let's just get our sketch. I think shipbuilding here, that's going to be the type of things that we draw in this area. So it'll be kind of fun. Okay, that's got that marked off. Now, up the top here, let's grab our little longboat. Let's drag a version up here. And again, we're going to draw all of these in properly, but let's, for giggles, I think that's a good width. I'm kind of okay with that width there. But this is very narrow. I mean, they're not, I mean, they might be able to sort of come around and kind of do this type of thing, but this is almost like a straight shot in and out. So we're going to be saying that our pier here, the main pier for loading and unloading, and we're not going to make this like a funny T-shape or anything, but I do think something like that in perhaps width. Let's hide the ink here. Beautiful. And then and the scale that we're drawing this, we're really going to be able to have fun with a lot of details that wouldn't do on our other maps, even though I love doing details on my maps. This is going to be that on steroids. It's going to be very, very, very special. Now, maybe, maybe even, what do you think about another shorter pier here? They're not called piers. What is it? Jetty? I should know this. I should know this. Let me know down in the comments. There is jetty, pier, and 2 other things. And for the life of me, I can't remember them now. Anyway, we're going to have this pier coming out here. Like so. I'm doing this on the other side as well, because I think that would give them versatility in loading and unloading, and they'd be able to get smaller kind of cargo ship here. Maybe something a little wider. He's a thick boy. But, again, just sketching them in. Maybe something like that. And I don't think it would be then wildly impossible to have another one kind of on this side over here. Again, maybe just a little shorter, and maybe this one we kind of do like this. So they could actually come in and kind of like, park up like so. Let's get some details on this one. Oh, let's get rid of the ink right there. So something like that. Nothing is cast in stone. I think maybe, or do we move these further down here? And so these kind of ships are doing this. They come in, they kind of load, and then they sort of back themselves up, and then they sort of leave that way. I mean, would that be over the top, do you think? Are we blocking the harbour by having these right there? I kind of feel like we might be. Maybe they would actually give themselves a little bit of room. So if that's the case, then what we could do is kind of just move these, and I would love to I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Okay. And then let's grab our little ships here. This, by the way, is one reason why I love doing things digitally, because it's given us so much flexibility to kind of, oops, I've just made them larger, move things around, play around a little bit, see what works. Okay, and then, because we're doing this digitally, we can actually, oh, don't move it, Phaeton. We can, there we go, just bring this back, because I haven't erased anything, I just hit it using a layer mask. Maybe that would make more sense. It feels a little less congested, and in fact, I might open these piers up. I feel like these piers need a little bit of breathing room. So maybe, oh, give me that one right there. Maybe we move that one there. And then these two here. Let's just these two, please. Thank you. Maybe we'll just move this one down. And then this one here. There we go. And we will just bring you maybe here and deselect you. I think that gives us a little bit more room to move about. What do you think? In fact, maybe let's show this one. It's actually going to be docked along here like so, and then this one here will show docked here like so, which could actually mean that we move this one here. Let's back out and let's see how this looks. I think it feels a bit more natural. I'm really wondering about... Okay, I've got an idea. What if we take our ink, and in fact, this time I am going to erase a section. What if we take a chunk out of here? Something like that. And what if they actually, maybe not quite as deep as that, but what if we did something like this? Like they've dug. I don't know whether, like, you know, the Vikings, Norse ever did anything like that, but what if we kind of made a man-made harbour where, you know, ships can come, ships and boats, shipping small little fishing boats or whatever, can come in a little bit deeper right here. It makes this, like, this area a little less congested here. Give it a bit of breathing room. I'm going to leave that there. I'm not sure if it's going to stick, but it will make it feel a little bit more like a warehouse loading, unloading area. So I might keep that. I'm still not sure about these piers. I'm still not sure whether I should add a fourth one or not. And I think me doing a cutout there was partly in an effort to imply extra loading and unloading facilities. If we say that that's going to be our rough... I'm kind of okay with this. I'm kind of okay with this. Let's assume that this is our rough sort of work in progress. Let's mark out our roads. And I'm going to do a temporary layer again. And I'm actually going to just mark this. We're going to give a color overlay. And we're going to give it, let's say red, just so it stands out. There we go. And now the reason why I do this is I'm now going to grab hard round. It could stay at 15 pixels. And I might just give that a little bit of transparency. We know that they need to get in and out of this area here. And we'll bring it right down there. Now that may not be all flagged or anything like that, but it's clear of buildings, right? So let's just call that a road of sorts. If we have, let's say, 2 warehouses down here, maybe we have a road right through the middle. This road, I approximate to be about 15-20 feet across. I should also say, I don't normally draw roads. It's the white space between my buildings that make the roads. However, you've seen on other maps that I've drawn that sometimes I do put the road edges in if there is no other structure that's going to define it for me. For example, if I just quickly sketch something down in the bottom area here, if I draw a building and then another building and then, you know, little sort of building here with an outhouse, whatever, and then this, and they've got a little garden, and maybe they've got a little garden, you could see the road has formed itself right through the middle. The buildings have actually done that for me. However, if I got rid of that there, now I have nothing in this area, right? And so you start to lose where the edge of the road is. So what I tend to do here is I have a very hard brush going right now, but I might dot the edge there. Or I actually might give these guys a little bit of a garden, just so I can start to help define this. We are going to have to do more of this approach with Krakenheim, partly due to the scale and partly due to the way they actually lay things out. They do have a lot of, I'm going to call it garden areas, but it's not really a garden, right? They have livestock there and the likes. So we're going to need to be able to capture that. But you could also see that on the scale we're drawing at, I can't do my fancy-dancy way of like, oh, this is like half a dozen buildings all jammed together. No, I've got to draw way more individual buildings and rooftops on this one. So it's going to kind of call me out a little bit. And because of that, I want to mark the road edges. I think we're going to need to know them. Now, we're going to have a similar situation going on up here. We are definitely going to be dragging some boats. We're going to have some fishing vessels. Let's say, for the sake of argument, something like this. Let's say that our warehouse might occupy kind of like this type of thing, but drawn straight and proper. Let's say something like that. And so we're just, again, kind of just marking off our space. This is where they're going to be working. That's only about, I mean, well, if that's 60 feet, that's about 60 feet. So that's a reasonable area to be working. I think, let's do 2 roads on this one. Let's do, no, there's no reason to do 2 roads, is there? No. We are going to do 1 main road, flanked by warehouses, and maybe they're going to look something a little bit like that. I think we can actually go to our sketch here and get rid of these. So it's going to be kind of something like that. And then we don't need quite as much road here, right? Because they're not dragging ships out of the water here. But they do need enough room to be able to work and load their carts, etc. I always love then marking off next to water. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. And next to the walls, because typically we're not going to have buildings, especially in a settlement like this, that are on top of the walls or merge into the walls. So we are going to block off something that is about 15 feet across around the outside edge. That gatehouse is about 40 feet deep, looking at our scale. And I think that feels about right. Yeah, 30, 40 feet, I think, would be, you know, looking at our reference pictures that we did in the last video. If you've not seen it, I encourage you to go back to it. That would be about the correct scale. By the way, you might be able to hear a cat in the background. Apparently, this is his time to whinge up a storm. I'm just going to let him do his thing, and you can listen to the dulcet tones of Deacon, our cat. Okay, these are only rough, by the way. Again, it's me blocking off where there won't be buildings. Now, this gate here, this is a major gate. Oh, I should actually bring up, just so you can actually see this. Let's just bring this one back up again. notice that there's plenty of roads here that are kind of like doing a little sort of nice medieval, early medieval kind of meandering around. There is a level of gridding going on, but it's fairly irregular. I want to capture this. I don't want it to feel like an American city, right? So we're definitely going to have a little bit of this going on. However, right now, see here, this major road coming through, that's what I want to try and capture. These dead spaces around the outside wall here, capturing that too. I do think it's really curious that they have all of this empty space at the top. We might try to, get a level of that in our map. I also don't see a longhouse here. Anyway, I want to kind of add a longhouse somewhere. We're going to be marking off that space here today. So, if we just roughly draw this in, I want this here to kind of meander through town like this and come in over there. That was rough, but just for the purposes of earmarking our space, something like that. Then this here is going to join onto it. And I think our, let's say our longhouse is kind of like in the middle of town. And I'm going to be looking up longhouse dimensions and stuff. But if it's something like this, I might even offset off that a little bit further off the road. But something like that. And then this kind of comes through here. I wanted another way in and out of town. That's more of a minor gate versus a major one. And then what we would do, or what I do then to mark the others, by the way, is I literally just do things like this. It's almost random. And you can consider these to be kind of one side of the road. So what we would do is, let's say somewhere like this, and I'll just grab this brush, I would draw in my building, let's say on that side, leave a gap, and then draw a building in on this side. And then you can see in that gap there, we have our road formed. So it's going to end up being something like that. Now we will need to get some kind of shrine on the map. I do also need to draw the outside ditches too, the defensive fortifications. But this already starts to have personality to it. This already feels very different than the Wantham map, even though both are settlements on the east side of a major river. And I like that. I like that Krakenheim, like you would look at this and go, oh yeah, that's the Krakenheim map that Alyssa did. And this is only going to start getting even better. So, yeah, I think this is shaping up. So what next? Well, I think what we need to start doing is actually drawing in some of these buildings, right? And for that, I'm going to actually be, well, I've got all sorts of little references to the type of building that I want to draw. Some a little bit more detailed than others. That's beautiful, by the way. I don't know the original artist. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I've got all sorts of references like this. But I also have this here, which is an actual modern recreation of a Viking settlement. And I'm going to be using this a lot. You can see this is not only, by the way, notice the roofs all covered in grass and the likes, or some of them. But notice the shape. This one has a lower hanging down bit here. This one doesn't, but it is, I think, like a double roof affair. But little shed out here. Now these are almost kind of laid out in a very loose manner. Then notice these a lot denser. This one here, nice little the out yards where our animals would be and the likes. Lots of pens going on back here and here. This is the type of density that I want to capture for Krakenheim. And have certain areas like this that are a little bit denser, buildings more closely packed together. And then ones like this where they're a little bit looser and plenty of pens and the likes going on. So I've got lots and lots of resources like that. I'm going to be sharing them on my Patreon. If you want to know the behind the scenes stuff on this, I do encourage you to check that out. I'd love to see you over there. I'm doing these as a fan service, by the way. I'm absolutely not getting paid for it. So if you want to give me a little bit of support, I would love to see you on my Patreon. Otherwise, please hit this video up with a like. Maybe even subscribe to me. And that way you'll always get the notifications when I'm releasing another Krakenheim video. Until then, everyone, I love you. I'll see you on the flip side.